Latino participation in the jury selection process. So I will come to you for a written explanation there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Mendoza, Judge Lee, congratulations on your nomination, and to your family, so I'm sure proud of you. Judge Lee, I'm not going to cover the ground that Senator Blackburn, I think Senator Lee, and Senator Hawley did on the COVID case, but maybe to give for the better, I'm not an attorney, I haven't been a Supreme Court clerk, so I'm going to approach this a little bit differently. I think that you have to understand at those times, we had a patchwork of closings across the country. We had some states that would allow bars to be open with 40 or 50 people in a relatively small space, subject to social distancing. And we had churches, my church probably can seat almost 1,000 people, at least 800, that could have far fewer than that. And so I think a lot of the concern that we have, aside from the fundamental concept of practicing your faith, is what, a lack of worship did to a number of people. I mean, there were a number of people, suicide rates, a number of things were up. Domestic violence was up, child abuse was up. So in our heads, we're trying to scratch our heads why we were picking and choosing what a safe environment was at the expense of the practice, the practice of one's religious faith. That's what's motivating us. And I think empirically, it's very difficult to see how we could hold religious institutions to a different standard. And I think that's the purpose for our question. So we'd probably have to agree to disagree. And then there's the other piece, which is I, for one, do not believe, hope and pray that our next pandemic is 100 years from now, but I doubt seriously that it will be. I think we have muscle memory now so that we could have some pathogen move through society and have these snap back. And so we've got to do a better job because I think it was fundamentally on its face unfair. So that's more of a statement than a question. Judge Mendoza, I've got two questions if time allows. One, and I'm honestly looking for more background. In the, is it Cower versus Garland? Are you familiar with that case?
I am, Senator.
Can you tell me a little bit about the circumstances of that case that led to your ruling?
Thank you, Senator. If I recall, Cower was a case where I sat by designation on the Ninth Circuit. And in Cower, I think the panel was considering, among other things, whether or not the threats of death to that individual constituted a basis for her protections under the CAT coverage, and that was the analysis or the one of the issues or the main issue in that case.
The other one that's been touched on by some of my other colleagues. Talk to me a little bit about why you believe, or you believed in the past, that we have a judicial system that's systemically racist. Tell me today in terms of, again, I'm not a judge, so I'm not gonna read through your ruling. I do read through your rulings, but I'm not gonna pretend to be a judge here. I'm just trying to understand, give me some fact patterns that would suggest that we have systemic racism. I get the need to have a diverse bench. The fact that we don't doesn't necessarily build a case for the judiciary being systemically racist. So give me some layman's terms examples of why you do think we have a problem with systemic racism in our judicial system.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. And I think you're referring to comments that I made when
26 years ago.
26.
Everybody made bonehead comments. I think your sons are probably a lot younger than 26. You will too. But no, so I'm trying to ask a comment that was made 26 years ago, which I believe we should excuse. We set a different bar here in other hearings where what you said in a high school yearbook can be used against you. I get that. But now I'm thinking about your contemporary thinking.
Sure.
Today, do you believe that there is evidence of systemic racism in our judicial system?
Well, Senator, what I see every day is that the lawyers come into my court arguing their cases and zealously representing their interests. And my job as a judge is to go into that with an open mind, listening to those arguments and making sure that they're given a fair shot, that I understand what their arguments are and that I look at the law that applies. Thankfully, the judges that I have served with, Senator, are judges that hold true to their oath, which is to have that same open mind. And that has not been my experience with certainly not my bench in the Eastern District of Washington, all of whom I respect tremendously.
Yeah, well, the reason I raise that is I hear people say it, and the zealots at either end of the spectrum are going to say what they're going to say. But when we have people that are making their way through the courts, I think it's important for you all as stewards of the institution to be careful with the words you use and the perceptions you give the population. The Article 3 branch is under assault right now. Just evidence Supreme Court justices who have people parked outside on their lawns. I hope that never happens to you as you make your way through the courts. But we're finding ways to, I think, really discredit the Article 3 branch. And for those who are stewards of that branch, and you all arguably are, then we need to make sure that those words from 26 years ago give meaning to the common day. I mean, do we really see it? What do we need to work on? We need to work on diversity in the courts. There's no question. We need to work on increased diversity across this nation in all aspects of employment. But we also need to make sure that people that are not attorneys who just take the base, and that erodes the credibility of a very important branch of our government. So thank you all again for being here and for your willingness to serve. And congratulations again to your families. And really think before you post on any social media. As a matter of fact, delete your accounts. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I would also note Senator Kennedy was going to vote. I know the vote was called, but he did say he was coming back. I don't know if he knew that he was next up in the order, but he did mention that he was coming back. Okay.
Senator Kennedy was recognized with this panel earlier.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tillis. Let me just echo your comments in terms of court security.